Hi everybody, Steve here at the Italian Cemetery in Colma, California. Colma is just 10 minutes south of downtown San Francisco. And you've probably heard of Colma because it has, dozens and dozens of cemeteries all located right next door to each other. I was here about a year or two ago, and I'm here once again to visit some of the cemeteries here and share with you some of the stories from the grave sites that I plan to visit here. And today's visit is one of those reminders not to compare ourselves with other people. I know we all do that. I know I do that. And it's easy to do. But today's story is a reminder that you never really know what's going on with someone, no matter how rich, no matter how famous, no matter how attractive they are, no matter what they have, they might be very, very unhappy. And sadly, that was the case with male model Brian Bianchini. Right before his death, he was considered to be one of the most handsome men in the world. He had everything. He had good looks, he had popularity, he had fame and fortune, but none of that could buy him his happiness. Unfortunately, and we hear of these stories way too often, Brian was one of the thousands, maybe millions in the world who really suffered from depression. And when he just couldn't take anymore, he sadly and tragically took his own life at the young age of 25. I remember being 25, and you do feel things a lot more intensely back then. At least I did, and I think a lot of people do. In your teen years, early 20s, life can seem a lot more intense. Everything seems so much more important. As you get older, you kind of realize that nothing's really all that important, or you realize the things that really are important aren't the things that you thought were important back in your teen years and in your 20s. But it takes getting to be older for you to discover that, and unfortunately so many young people don't realize that at the time, and they don't live long enough to realize that it usually does get better. Now, I don't know about depression. I've never suffered from depression, and from what I've heard, it's something that can be extremely serious, and especially if it's serious enough to make you want to take your own life. That's definitely something that I've never experienced, and I know there's medications for those kind of things, but maybe if you're severely depressed, you don't want to take the medication. I'm not really sure why he wasn't able to get any help with his depression, but he was photographed by the top photographers in the world. He modeled and appeared in ads for the top companies in the world, but on March 16th, 2004, apparently he just wasn't able to take it anymore. None of that was worth it. Nothing he had was worth dealing with the pain that he was feeling. So, your heart really goes out to someone like that, to all the people who are going through this. So, hopefully, if anyone's watching, now I know most of my crowd is an older crowd, but if anyone is younger watching this, hopefully they'll look into Brian's story and, if possible, get help for themselves and let his story be motivation for others who are going through something similar to hopefully go and get help before it's too late. So, when I heard about Brian's story, I wanted to come by and visit his gravesite and share his story with you. I'm sure he doesn't get visited as often as, more famous people. And as you know, I tend to prefer to visit people who are, notable, who've done something interesting, or they're famous, but in a different way, not necessarily the most famous people that everyone visits. Those grave sites get visited by everyone. I prefer to visit the grave sites that aren't visited as often. So I'm going to add a GPS to his grave site. I called the cemetery. They gave me directions, which were very helpful because I wasn't exactly sure where his grave site was located. And it's a pretty large cemetery. So they gave me directions, and I'm going to add a GPS to make it easier in case any of you are here in the neighborhood or here in Colma and decide to come and pay your respects and visit Brian. Hopefully the GPS will make it just a little bit easier to do that. This week, I'd like to thank my newest Patreon supporters, Nancy Patterson and Tim Shortnacy. Thank you so much, Nancy and Tim, for your extra generous donations to my channel. They are very appreciated and definitely do help make future trips like this possible. I also want to give a shout out and a very big thank you to all of you who have taken the time to subscribe to my channel, especially since some of my more recent videos, and you can probably guess which ones, have angered so many of my past subscribers and caused them to unsubscribe. To paraphrase that old saying, I guess, one viewer's trash is another viewer's treasure. And in the wise words of Ricky Nelson, you can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself. So until our next trip to the cemetery together, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.